Okay, I've got it.
Because we're recording.
Yeah. Bring it on. Hello.
There you are. I was wondering why you weren't starting.
Oh,
there you are.
I'm good.
You
Okay.
did. You're good. For a second, I was like, "What?
Like, wait a minute.
What?"
Don't give us any
Now
trouble.
I'm in charge. Now I'm in charge of the studio for recording.
Don't give us any trouble. Welcome back. We are almost there. We have been going strong this morning. Now it's afternoon.
I'm getting hungry. I'm getting tired.
I'm starving. All I had was 2 pieces of cantaloupe in my mouth.
It's almost time for the football, so things are gonna get loud. So we gotta get through this discussion.
Indeed.
Right? So we're gonna get through it.
Let's do it. All right.
What are you reading?
I have gone back because I've had this book for quite some time. I've gone back to reading The Davenports, More Than This by Crystal Marquis. This is book 2 in the Davenport series. I was very fortunate enough to get a early copy of The Davenports book 1 2 years ago, and that was such a delightful read. I enjoyed it so much. And I started this book like 4 months ago, so I basically just started over a few days ago. So I'm back to square one, but I think I may finish this probably this weekend. But it's lovely. We're back with, this family, and I'm having a good time. If you read Davenport's, the first book, I'm sure you'll be excited to read this one. If you're just hearing about this series, this is book 2, so don't start here. Start with the Davenports with the yellow cover and a different couple on the front. But this, like, wealthy black family in 1910 Chicago is like, I don't know, like a Bridgerton type of family, and all the sisters are kind of like, marrying off, and so we're all involved in their romantic entanglements, and watching their brothers figure out how they're gonna work the family business, and just watching everyone fall in love or out of love, and just kind of live their beautiful black lives in Chicago. And it's just really all lovely. And I'm having a good time. So hopefully I will finish this over the weekend. Oh, and I think this comes out November. I don't know the exact date, but it comes out in November.
I know that you did really enjoy the first one.
I really did. So much. So much. Hey, what have you been reading?
So I finished Little Rot by Kweke Emezi.
Oh.
And this was like something else. I sent you some voice notes as I was going along. This is like a really, I don't know the right word, if it's dark or sinister, maybe both story. And I couldn't, like, I stopped one day just because I don't know what happened, but then as soon as the next day came, I was like, nope, I got to finish this book. So like yeah. So it's one weekend, the elite underbelly of a Nigerian city, a party that goes awry, a tangled web of sex and lies and corruption that leaves no one unscathed. There is no happy ending, as much as you might want it. The way Kweke Emezi just like rips the covers off of corruption and like the seediness of things that are going on. It's very interesting to read this along with like P. Diddy and In the Wake of Epstein, and then this thinking about like how nobody is really, there's like nowhere you could be like, oh, well, that's over there. No, it's everywhere. You get money, corruption, you mix that with like religion and just like politics and power. This book was a ride. Okay.
Yeah.
I couldn't stop. I could not stop. And like, oh, the ending, look, like, fantastic. I would say that this is almost like a thriller, but it's not a thriller.
Right.
Like, it reads like it you get the sensations you have while reading a thriller where you're, like, speeding through and you need to know what happens next and you're waiting for the twists, but
Mhm.
it's not a thriller.
Right. It's
So good.
salacious. It's
Yes,
very
that is
salacious.
it's an excellent word.
Yeah.
Um, and I mean, they don't hold back. Like, the sex, the not that sex is depraved, but, like, the depravity, there is depravity in this. The
Mhm.
mirroring of the 2, like, because you start with, like, a couple that's breaking up, and then they kind of each end up with their best friends, and the mirroring of those best friendships is very interesting, like, on a
Right.
sexual, like, level. It's a really well done book, and the way that they unfold the story is so compelling and keeps you flipping that page. It's so good.
Agreed. Agreed.
Mhm.
They are
Yeah.
just really and truly a talented, amazing writer. And sometimes I feel like Emeze is kind of close to like Colson Whitehead. Like Colson Whitehead is not going to give you the same thing in every book. You're always going to get something different with him, and it's going to be amazing. It's gonna you might get
Yeah,
historical fiction, you might get um like a thriller type story, you might get some speculative fiction. You don't know what you're gonna get from him. You can just know that it's going to be so well written, so well put together, and it's gonna blow your mind on some level. That's how Colson Whitehead works, and I feel like Amezi is gonna be like that.
I feel like if you're looking for a like an Emeze book that has, like, the lyricism of maybe, like, Dear Synthurian or some of their other books, that's not what you're gonna get here. You're gonna get, like, really compelling, wonderfully plotted story, with great characters. But the, like, more, like, literary, like, esoteric stuff, that there's, like, hints of it here and there, but that's not the focus. The focus is on this,
Yeah,
like, very plotty story, and it is
right.
really well done.
Yep,
Really well done.
yep. Agreed. Agreed.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well,
So dearly beloved, what are we here to talk about today?
romantasy.
Again, because we've talked about this before,
We have. We
but
have.
there is a new angle.
There are so many angles. The romantasy subgenre is on the tips of many lips in the reader space, and there are just so many different angles, so many different arguments, from the reader perspective and from the author perspective. And I just thought, yay, maybe we shall have another conversation about it. I was on Threads, and I'm looking for what I sent you.
You
Um,
do love Threads. Do people use Threads?
uh,
I don't really use Threads, but
I
do other
don't
people listening?
I don't love it. Actually, Threads annoys me a great deal because it's very like engagement baity. No, you know what happens when I'm on Threads? My get off my lawn side comes out a lot. I am very annoyed on Threads, but I'm trying to like see like is this really going to be like a one of the permanent places where I post on a regular basis or not? But these stupid questions that people ask every day just really just set my hair on fire. I mean, just really set my hair on fire.
Like
Um,
what?
Oh, at what point are we DNFing books? I don't know, girl. Whenever you feel like you want to DNF the damn book, why are you asking us? I think that because, like in general, I'm a pretty decisive person, and I'm not someone who needs other people to tell me like how to make decisions in my grown ass adult life. I'm very much irritated by people who do that, and that's what Threads is. That's what Threads is. What kind
That's
of bookshelf should I
that's
get? Girl, I don't know. I don't know what your space looks like. Have you measured your room? I don't know. It's your house. Stuff like that. Like it sets me off. Sets me off.
clearly.
Sometimes I post on there and I have to say to myself, you know what? That was way too fucking mean. Log yourself off the right now. Just log off right now. And I log off. I log off.
You almost
Self
caught Naomi in an F-bomb, man.
you gotta
I heard that.
self-control. Like I almost went there. I almost went there, but I didn't want to have to flag that this had cursing in it. But yeah, Threads annoys me a lot because of the
Don't you have
stupid
to? Because 'Cause I'm
engagement.
on here?
Uh-huh.
Don't you have to
Oh,
flag it because 'cause I'm on here?
you're good. You're good more than you're not. I don't think you realize that.
Oh, well, that's nice to know.
Yeah, yeah.
I must be behaving myself because, like, if
You're
you heard me
behaving.
at work, you'd be like, "You're at work."
No, you're doing. You've been doing very very well. So no, I wouldn't say I love threads. It very much irritates me. But whatever. So, I saw this post. Someone said their post said just saw this post where someone says romantasy has started to ruin the fantasy genre. They insisted you read the rest of their threads, which goes on to criticize tropes, smut, romance, and book talk while always adding a caveat about how they respect those things despite the fact they're ruining the genre. Let me just say there has always been romance and fantasy. Just because a relatively new term, romantasy, has come about doesn't mean it's something new. So this is like, I've seen this type of like, argument, like basically like, why is everyone acting like romantasy is new? It's not new. You all act like Sarah J. Maas invented romantasy. And I think a lot of people who've been reading romantasy for a very, very long time are pretty annoyed with like, look, I understand y'all are in your little mass universe and loving it. Great, good for you. But let's stop acting like she's the one that invented that subgenre. This is not a new subgenre. And so I thought it might be interesting to discuss because man, people got their like feathers like all in a ruffle about this whole thing with romantasy. Some are annoyed with the term. Some are annoyed that all you ever get are recommendations for romantasy that are just fourth wing, thrown to glass, and what's the other Moss one? I mean, people are just beside
Avatar.
themselves. Akatar, yeah, they're beside themselves. So
Well, I think that it's a little bit like, well, I think this is just like what happens, right? So there's two things. Like when Twilight was big, that was like the oh, Twilight brought vampires. No, Twilight did not bring vampires. I mean, Anne
right,
Rice is sitting there like poking her little head up, like, excuse
like excuse me.
me. There were people that were writing these stories for quite a long time before something kicks it off and made it big. Um, I think now that you have social media wrapped into this whole thing too, things just
Yeah,
kind of get more, I don't know if they get bigger, but they get more annoying. Like you just hear about things more and it's insufferable.
yeah,
Um I I there's always been romance in lots of things. And there you sent this other article which I really enjoyed because it talks about two series that I've been meaning to get to and it reminded me that I need to get to them. And one is this Kushel's Dart, which Jacqueline Carey has started to write a new series, and I made you get that, didn't I?
yes. You
Uh
you put it in my cart, ma'am. You put it
yeah.
in my cart.
So, Tor kindly sent me the original trilogy because there's a new book in this world that came out maybe last year. I have that as well, and I really want to get to this. And this is like a sex slave, basically, story, and it is very sexy, romantic, smutty fantasy, and it's years old, way
Yeah,
before anybody was calling anything romantasy.
right.
Um, and so, yeah, I think there's like this element of everything that's old is new again, and that the kids, the
Yeah,
kids these days, they, when you find something and it's new to you, and you're a large group of people and it's new to you, it feels like it's brand new in general, right?
yeah,
And then, everybody who's been around for a little longer than you is like, well, actually, no.
right,
Um, you didn't find Michael Jackson, like, we've been listening to him forever, like that kind of thing where you're
right.
like, "Did you hear this new verse?" And I feel like you see this in a lot of different things. But the other thing that was mentioned in this article that we'll link below that Naomi talks about is, Anne Bishop, and I bought
Yeah,
this bind up of, The Black Jewels, the original trilogy, because a lot of people apparently have said that this is very much, um, like ACOTAR, I think?
mm,
Um, and if and I was curious to read these and see, like, how similar they really are to Sarah J. Maas, because, like, there really is no new story, like, let's all
there
be
isn't.
honest, like, we're all kind of reinventing and reconfiguring the words and creating a new experience with them, but there's no new story. especially like with every eon that passes. There is no new story. Um, so I'm very curious for this one in particular to find out just how much this mirrors Akatar, because this came long before Akatar. It definitely has a lot of romance in it. Um, it's not so for what I can tell from just having these two books, knowing what books written, 10, 15 years ago
Well,
or older are like.
well, Kushil's Dart was written 23 years ago,
Yeah.
or
So
published 23 years ago.
so what I'm gonna guess is a huge difference between these books that are being pushed now as romantasy and some of these older books that show that romantasy has kind of always been there as a genre, whether we were calling it that or not, are that there's more to these other books than just the romance. There's more to these other books than just the sex. And
Yeah,
that for like Akatar, I feel like you can see the evolution in that series in particular of it going from Akatar, the first book, and which is definitely written for a younger audience, not a young audience, but a younger audience.
younger. Mhm.
And how that story very rapidly progressed into like an adult story, and then how rapidly from there, as people really enjoyed the more romantic elements to it, the smuttier, spicier elements to it, how it just kind of became a sex book. Like when you get to the last book in this series so far, or in
Mhm.
this world, it's like a lot of sex. Like it's a lot. And like I don't mind it. I'm a grown ass adult. That's fine. But there's this weird progression. Like if you started at Akatar and you go to like Silver Flames, it's quite a leap.
Mm.
In terms of like if you were had to give it like a movie rating, right? Like you're going from like maybe PG-13 to like rated R,
Okay.
maybe even like NC-17, you know?
Interesting. Okay.
So I feel like as the how do I want to say this? I feel like as the readership has one aged and two as they've become more like I guess into this whole spice thing, and spice has become the thing that sells. I mean, sex sells. I mean, it's a phrase for a reason. Um, that's become the focus as opposed to maybe the story and the character development and all the other stuff that seems to be secondary and takes a back
Right.
seat. And I feel like with these older stories, I mean, yes, sex always sold, right? There's always been a romance genre, and it's always been like sort of the backbone of publishing, especially now. It makes probably more money than any other genre
Yeah.
of books. And but I feel like those books have like substance consistently more than a lot of these other stories do, especially the things that are being published on the heels of Sarah J. Maas, like Iron Flame, like this, that, and the other thing that come out
I would have to
um,
agree.
as cookie cutter, cash grabs almost.
Yeah, I would have to agree. The article also mentions Mercedes Lackey, and
Mhm.
I own the
I haven't read
first.
any, so
I haven't read these yet, but I bought these because I wanted to read this Heralds of Veldemar series, and these are the first two books in that series, Arrows of the Queen and Arrows Flight. So it'll be interesting to get into those and see how romance is played out. Because you'll often, because I guess for me too, like I was trying to understand what romantasy is, and when you like I see posts on threads like, okay, outside of Throne of Glass, Akatar, and Fourth Wing, what are some other romantasy recommendations? And then I look at what people are listing, and I'm like, I don't consider Ninth House romantasy. You know what I mean? Or like Shauna McGuire's October Day series, like that is urban fantasy, but like people say it's romance. So I'm very confused. I'm like, so now is the thing, like if there's sex in it, do you just think because it's sex in it, it's romantasy?
I think possibly.
Because
That is
no, I don't know. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I don't know, but that's what I've known. Like I'm reading these titles, I'm like, that is what? That doesn't seem right.
honestly, I just feel like there's a subsection that seems very loud because of book talk. Not to blame everything on book talk, but I just feel like they seem very loud because it sort of amplifies them and their message of people, and they just really like romance, right? Like they just really like smut. So wonderful that people can find things that they love and like whatever. Sex positive over here. Do what you want.
Right.
Read all the porn you want. I do not care. But it seems very loud, right? Like it's like a
Yeah.
very loud voice in the space. And I think that publishing reflects that because you see a lot of publishing houses that are making imprints that are just for romantic fantasy, like Tor and Bramble, and we just read in this article another one,
Mhm. From
from where again?
HarperCollins.
HarperCollins.
Mhm.
It's because they seem to be such a loud voice in, like, the voice of readers just generally, publishing is answering that demand, but, like, everything doesn't have to have smut in it, and everything doesn't have to be romantasy, and it's weird. I don't know where I'm going with this other than it's weird. Like, it's just very strange to me.
It's all very strange because sometimes it seems like there are new readers to romantasy who think that romantasy is the entire fantasy genre.
Yeah.
It's like, no, sweetheart, do you know how many subgenres of fantasy there are? Like the list is deep. This is one subgenre of the entire fantasy genre.
And they can
So,
cross.
yeah.
They can cross over because I would say that, like, Crescent City is urban fantasy, but I also think it's romantasy because I think the whole element of, like, mates and pairing and all
Mhm.
that bonding, and even though there's not quite as much actual smut, I think, in those as maybe there are in ACOTAR,
Yeah.
I think that, like, it's still, like, a heavy focus of it is this idea of, like, mating and pairing, um, but it's still urban fantasy.
Right.
But
Right.
like, if you asked me to define to me, like, if you said to me, like, "What do you think of when someone says romantasy?" I'm thinking of a book where that plot point is the main plot point. It is
Right.
about,
It's
like,
pushing the story
the
forward, right?
that's what the characters are supposed to be doing. They're not really on an epic quest. They're not really, I don't know, saving the world. They're not no one's really a chosen one. There's not any
Right.
of the other, like, typical fantasy plot lines.
Mhm.
It's the major plot line is this romance, and, will they or won't they?
Yeah.
And hopefully they will, and then what how,
Right.
when we get that moment, and then
Yep.
along the way, they have some things that they have to do, and they fit into, like, a fantasy world, like, there's fairies or there's whatever, whatever it is, right? But just having a romance or having sex in a book that also happens to be fantasy, I don't think makes it romantasy.
I agree. It's just like the series A Song of Ice and Fire by George R. R. Martin. There's a lot of sex in that series, a lot of relationships, but that is not what is driving that entire story. That is leaning heavily like dark, grimdark adult fantasy.
Yeah, and I don't know if we want that much incest to be your romantasy.
Hello. Hello.
I mean, maybe you do, I don't know, I've seen some of these dark romance girlies, and, maybe I
Yeah.
do. I just watched a really interesting video, and I'll send it over to Naomi so she can drop it in the show notes if you guys wanna watch it, but there's a lot of videos about book talk and book talk ruining things and this, that, and the other thing, um, and I think this video essay was very good at sort of articulating that, like, okay, sure, maybe fine, but, like, who is book talk? We are book talk, like, maybe not you and me, but, like, we are readers and we
Yeah.
are doing this, and, like, if you don't want to consume these things, or if you are looking for other things, look for the other things, like, you're in control of this ship, right? Maybe that's
Yeah.
why you hate Threads is because it feels like mob hive mind, right?
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
we don't all need to be reading the same things, and not all books have to be the same. There seems to be, like, a flattening of books, which happens, I feel like, when something becomes really popular. It's like some one thing, right? And
Yes.
then publishing, because it's a corporation, not some altruistic beast that puts out books for us to read.
That's right.
There's they capitalize as much as possible on that popularity, and then there's just this flattening of things, which is why, like,
Yeah.
I'm hesitant to read a book that's marketed as romantasy, not because I don't like things like that, but the longer this goes on, the more I assume it to be terrible.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna always assume it's gonna be terrible. I'm gonna assume that it's gonna be very cookie cutter. Look, I read Fourth Wing. That book is not good. I don't care what you all say.
I
Um,
had fun. I had fun, and that's the
I know
other side
you
of
had
this, I
fun.
think. I think sometimes you just want fun, like, you just want a fun book. Like, you have your westerns that you just enjoy, or, like, we all
Yeah,
have things, right,
yeah,
that are just fun. Some people read, like, cozy little mysteries, whatever it
yeah,
is. But, like, I was not obsessed with it. I did not think it was amazing. I did not think it was, I mean, it was a terribly written book, but damn, did I have fun with it.
yeah.
And but that next one, ma'am,
But
you
right,
decided to be a greedy, greedy, greedy thing. That story should have been cut down. The story was not good. That story was repetitive. How did we keep going back to the same thing? I mean, reading that, I read that with my friend Roger, and it was torture. Like, that was torture.
but
Like,
that's what I'm saying. Like
you
everyone
lost all the
likes it.
fun.
Everyone
You
likes
lost all the
Fourth
fun.
Wing. We're gonna now they're gonna mass produce more books like Fourth Wing, but
Yeah.
like we're not getting better books. Sure, they're
No.
fun, but we're not getting better. That was an accident. I didn't do it. We're not getting better books. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I don't look. There's a place for everything, but like I guess I just don't. I think it's sad just to get a slew of just like I don't know, just bottom of the barrel basic books.
But
Like
those bottom of the barrel basic books, which is a lot of B's, they sell.
they do. They do. But here's the thing. Okay, they sell, but like, does that also mean that because they sell and now they can fund this subgenre a little bit more, does that mean publishers are going to, like open up and allow more diverse books into that bucket? Probably not. Probably
No.
not.
I feel like, didn't you send something to me? And maybe it was this one quote up here,
Yeah.
but something about, like,
I'll
maybe
read it.
somebody else said it to me,
Is it the
that
one
was
about
like,
the authors and now about the seven-figure deals and all that? And what I'll read it, you tell me this is what you're saying. Interesting that Romantasy is suddenly getting quote unquote saturated now that BIPOC authors are throwing their hats in the ring. Like we can't see seven-figure deals still going to specific types of authors for the same types of books.
that was not the one I was thinking of, but I think that that one's a
Okay.
really important point.
Hmm.
I feel like someone sent me something, and I don't remember if it was a thread or just, like, someone made a point that, like, there was almost like this opening up of to more diverse avenues, right, in publishing, but there wasn't maybe necessarily equal support going into these books, almost in a way of being like, we'll set things up to fail so that we can be like, see, we tried it. So we're going to go
Yeah.
back to the same people that we've always been, successful with, and we're going to continue down that route. Um, so just your question kind of made me think about that, and then this statement I think does kind of flow into that as well. That unfortunately, as more non-white lady writers enter the space, I think there will be a shift,
Yeah. Yeah.
because I think there kind of always is.
Yeah. And that's on everybody. That's on publishing houses and readers as well. It's like this is it's twofold. It's twofold.
Well, because there's also that, like, argument, I think we see it, or I see it more in fantasy, where, like, you'll have a BIPOC author who writes a fantasy series, and there is pushback from BIPOC communities on the story. Maybe not because the story is bad, but because clearly the story was written to capture a white audience, and I'm thinking of, like,
Legendborn?
yeah, and I think that that gets mixed up into this discussion as well. Um, how are these books being written? Are they being still sort of, almost like gentrified?
Yeah, yeah. There was an author on Threads who was saying that, like, 'cause she writes fantasy that has some romance, but, like, that's not the main thing, but she was, like, saying that it was very hard for her to get a deal because it wasn't romantasy enough. So, like, if you're an author who's writing fantasy, but likes not specifically romantasy, like, are you not even getting a chance because you're not writing in the in the money bucket subgenre at the moment?
It would be curious to, like, see. Maybe I need to look more closely maybe at, like, what I get every month from Tor in my emails, just, like, what kinds of books I'm getting. Because is it a lot of maybe not, like, traditional fantasy? Because I think traditional fantasy is kind of on a lull as well, but, like, the epic fantasies are kind of on a lull.
Mhm.
But, like, more in that vein, I guess, like, not definitely not romantasy, right? Like, is
Yeah.
it that and romantasy, and those are your options? Or is there anything that's in between? Have we become very, like, black and white in what is being published? Because I feel like these books that were mentioned in that article, like Billy Ann
Mhm.
Bishop, blur that line. Now, I haven't read them yet, but I
Right.
feel like they blur that line. It sounds like the Mercedes Lackeys blur the line, right?
Mhm.
They have, like, very traditional fantasy elements and romance, like, either together or, like, fantasy and then, like, romance is just
Right.
underneath, like, under but, like, not leading with romance.
Yeah.
But, like, something like Fourth Wing, you can tell me all that you want that's about dragons, but it's not. You just want lightning sex.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, like, why are they always teenagers?
Yeah, that's I mean, ugh, it gives me the ick. I'm sorry. I just ugh.
But, I mean, it is weird when you think about, like, 40-year-old women, as we are, like, reading something like that, like, reading, like, about 18-year-old kids
Yeah.
having sex and finding that, like,
Hot.
yeah, and not just like, "Oh, I had a really fun time with this dragon book," which is like I was like, "This is fun. This is
Yeah.
predictable. I had a good time. I enjoyed myself." I think I read it in, like, a day. I was like, "Okay."
Yeah.
But I wasn't, like, lusting after a like a teenage boy. Like, they're still teenagers, you know?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes sometimes I just opt myself out of things like, all right, fine, I'm too old for that. It is what it is. Whatever, it doesn't matter. You know what I mean? Like, go have your fun, do whatever. I can't get into that. I'm not continuing that. Whatever. I'm very interested in Cushio's Dart and the Mercedes Lackey books.
Yeah.
I might
But
start them soon.
I think we need just, like, more I think we need more maturity, and I think the other thing that the article that you sent me, um, talks a lot about and has been spoken a lot about is that with this blurring of lines comes this, like, blurring of ages that are reading things,
Oh yeah.
and maybe, like, I mean, I think there's to some extent, like, I think kids have always kind of we're always gonna get into things that we weren't supposed to, like, you're gonna go see the
Right.
movie that's, like, out of your age range, and you're gonna read the books that are a little spicy, you know?
Yep.
Whether you're stealing them from your mother, like, your mother's Danielle Steels, or you're, like, sneaking into a rated R film, like, we all did
Right.
things, right? You're never gonna completely isolate the children unless you wanna totally indoctrinate them and raise them in a cult, um, which some people do. Uh,
Yep.
they're still gonna find things, but
Of course.
it's weird to have I think the thing that makes ACOTAR weird is the fact that it amps up so rapidly
Mhm.
from what is essentially like a young adult story to an adult story. And you can try to shove it into new adult, but it's really not. And I mean, I don't necessarily blame Sarah J. Maas because like if that's what's gonna sell, I mean, get your bag, right? Like we all gotta make
Right.
money. But it's seems like somebody publishing booksellers, maybe even those of us who promote stuff online, uh, should be doing a better job at making sure things are doing our best to make sure things are age appropriate. So, like,
Mhm.
maybe, like, everybody doesn't like, every romance doesn't have to have those, like, cartoon covers, right? Like, they look
Right.
really sweet and cute, and, like, people are getting pegged in them. Like, that's not, like,
Yep.
that's not for kids, right? And, like, maybe we don't start YA series and end them as adult series. Like,
Now that is see,
maybe
that
we
is a slippery
stay
slope.
maybe we stay in YA. Like, if you're gonna start a
Exactly.
series in YA, you stay in YA, and if you wanna write
Right.
a series that's adult, you start a
Then
new one.
start a
Like,
new one. Exactly, because that's a slippery slope, but I think that has caused a lot of consternation, with people, and so yeah, like if I did not read in the fantasy genre at all, and let's say that I had preteen nieces and I saw those ACOTAR covers, I would not think immediately there's a lot of sexy time in these books. That's not what
yeah,
I would think, and I would buy them.
yeah. Especially because like, I don't know, I've only read the first Throne of Glass and the, like, novellas. I do need to go back and start that over again. I don't know how much that ramps up throughout, but I feel like that might stay a bit more consistent, at least for longer. But like literally, it's like from one book to the next, you've jumped. And then 2 books later, like it's basically porn.
Wow, that fast, huh?
Yeah, and I think that's like really quick. And I think the problem maybe isn't necessarily that like the series is sexy. I think it's that you started a series that was YA and
Yeah.
you did not continue down that road. And if that's okay, because it's deemed okay because it's a success, right? Like
Right.
you have AB tested this and yes, we are it works. Like
Yep.
then other people are gonna mirror it.
Yeah.
And then how far can you push things? How much do you blur lines? And like young people are giant consumers. That's why they put commercials on when we were kids for all the
Yep.
things that we wanted when we would be watching stuff because kids drive consumption. Teens drive consumption. They still do. And they're kind of always going to be a large market. And that is like women
Yeah.
and then men.
And speaking of that, this article also talks about how a lot of modern romantasy is sold based on tropes, and this is also something that I see on socials a lot. um People specifically requesting books based on various tropes, or just like every day somebody asking, like, oh, what are your favorite book tropes or whatever, and I'm like, sis, I don't know, feels weird to me, but that's how they're selling books now, and I don't know how I feel about that. And I guess too because I'm not looking for those books. I don't see what they're doing. Have you noticed it and what do you think about it?
Um, Ask the question again. I
Yeah,
didn't
selling
follow.
selling books via book tropes, like, Grumpy
Oh,
Sunshine meets whatever. Like, I guess also too because I'm mostly shopping in used bookstores, right? So that's not what's going on in those stores.
I think that I wonder, well, I don't know. I wonder if that's actually more of a function of like um the fact that we are selling books so much through like short form media
Mm,
or infographic or like everything is very quick. So even reading the summary of a book is perhaps too much.
geez.
So So, if you can snag somebody in, like, 3 phrases, a handful of words, isn't that a better use of your marketing? Isn't that more effective marketing than, like, having to go through a whole paragraph, right? Like, if we can snag you quickly. So, I wonder if there's a function of that in it, like,
Mm,
tropification is, like, trying to, like, snag people sooner and to just get them hooked and to want to read the thing without any more information, like, the quicker you get people to,
yeah,
to to buy it and sign up and do it, like, get them interested, they will you've got them, right? Like, you'll get their money, you can move on, and if you can keep hitting those points and you can keep, like, getting people to engage and you don't have to, like, put in all this other marketing effort, you can just be
right.
like, "Grumpy sunshine," and the people are gonna buy it. I think that of course they're gonna do that because the less work you have to do, the more money they make.
Hmm.
But then I think
Yes,
the
yeah.
flip side of that is then books kinda get written to specific tropes because those tropes sell, whether the tropes and that's fine, you could be like, "I wanna write an enemies to lovers story," right? Because like, you like that, it creates great banter, it's good, whatever, it works for you, but if you don't add more to that, if there aren't other things to it, it becomes like a hollow story.
Yeah, and you will see that. I've seen authors plenty of times say, like, What would you guys think if I wrote a enemies to lovers book or whatever?" And it's like, this is very interesting. I guess from the writer's perspective, I like is crowdsourcing your next book what you do. I didn't think that's I don't know. It seems strange. I guess I just assume writers have ideas and they write those books and then they get them published, and that's just how that works. You know what I
I
mean?
mean, at the end of the day, people just it's a business.
Yeah. Hmm. I guess yeah, I don't know. It's just so strange.
I think at the end of the day, it's a business, and
Yeah.
we can't forget that. Like, we can have all these, like, esoteric conversations that we want, but at the end of the day, it's all business.
Yeah, that's
So,
true.
we can fight all we want about whether or not this is good literature, or is this good for the children, is this, that, or the other thing, but as if it keeps selling,
There
they're
will be
gonna
more.
keep publishing it, and they'll keep doing it, and I think that, of course, social media and particularly book talk has a role to play on this because that's a tool that's being used to sell things. But
Yes.
you, as a consumer, can be active and not passive, and you can choose to seek out other things. You can choose to broaden your horizons. You could
Mhm.
choose to maybe listen to the people that are talking about things like read this article and learn about Anne Bishop or learn about Mercedes Lackey and read those books and expand your horizons.
Yeah.
Or not. Or you can just be happy where you are because that's fine too. But
Yeah.
I think I think it's sad to see some things. Like, it's sad to see that, like, flattening of stories. Um, but I don't think that means that there's no good stories coming out. It's that you just kinda have a lot of noise of bad stories, and there's good
Yeah.
stories in the mix.
That's true. That's true.
I just texted you the video I watched last night.
I got it.
It's, yeah, it's not book talk, it's you. I wanted to say babes at the end. Um but I think they do a really good job of breaking down, like, kind of what the issues are that people are bringing up. But at the end of the day, I mean, it is you. Like, you control your FYP, you control where you put your money. People are going to try to manipulate you, and by people I mean marketing and publishing and businesses. But like at the end of the day, you control it. So
Right.
if you don't have to be caught up in the hype. Um, if you want to be, that's fine. Like,
Right.
enjoy yourself, but it would be nice if people understood that they're, like, just kind of riding a wave and that, like, we may look back on some of these things like Fourth Wing and ACOTAR and all of that, and, like, it's gonna become a meme, it's gonna become a joke, we're gonna, like, laugh about it, right? Like you
Mhm.
do with Twilight as a meme and a joke and
Right.
other things. I mean, even Harry Potter to some extent, I mean yes, it's probably more beloved as a series, maybe because it's childhood and it's a different kind of thing, but even that kinda gets joked and
Yeah,
teased
sure it does.
and all of that, and it loses some of that seriousness as things age, right? So I think that some of these people are gonna look back and it's gonna be like me looking back on reading Twilight,
Right.
right? And I'm gonna be like, well, that was a silly book, but I enjoyed myself, right? So
Exactly.
hopefully you're reading them because you enjoy them and not reading them because you think this is the only thing that's out there and you're having an absolutely miserable time. Because if you're having an absolutely miserable time, please find other books. Please do.
Right.
If you keep picking this, that sometimes I watch creators and like they'll pick up like one book after another, after another, after another, and they're like the same book, right? And they're miserable. And I'm like, just try something else.
Yeah, I noticed that too. I noticed that too. It's like there are so many other subgenres to read.
Hmm.
Like you do not have to stick to one thing. You can venture out. You can venture
Yeah,
out, and you don't need to crowdsource the internet to figure it out either. I'm just saying, you don't need
literally,
to
it's
like.
like go walk through the library and pick up
That's
things
it.
that look interesting.
I don't know. People are really opposed to this. Like I see it all the time. It's like, I'm going to the bookstore. What should I buy? Like, you're going to the bookstore. Walk around. Pick up
Figure it
whatever piques
out.
your interest. Why do you need to ask anybody what you should buy? You're in the bookstore right in front of you. Take your time, walk around, peruse the aisles, just grab
Read the
whatever
back of
books
books.
sound interesting to you. But
Look
people
at
do
the
not like
staff
doing that.
picks.
I don't know. People like to go in with a list of like what other books said they should read. And I just think that you're like you're missing out on the like book discovery. There's something so beautiful in that. And also I do think it helps you become a more confident reader when you can just go to the bookstore and peruse those shelves and pick out things that sound like they're right up your alley. It makes you a more confident
Because you know what
reader.
you like. You have to read
Also,
broadly.
you know what I also realized? People are afraid of choosing a book to read that they end up not liking. But please hear me out on this. That is not a waste of time.
You
We're
learn
all just
something.
trying to figure out what our reading taste is. So if you read a book you didn't like, then you can figure out, well, what was it about that book you didn't like, right? And that just
Mhm.
helps you to understand more of the kind of reader that you are. So there is
I
no wasting time reading books, even if it turned out to be one that you absolutely thought was god awful. It's still helping you to develop yourself as a reader, learning who you are as a reader. It's all worth it.
Mhm.
Just saying.
Preach.
Just saying.
I agree. I
All
think it's
right.
all valuable. It's all valuable information. I think that there's so much out there to read, to try. There's so many things that blur the line between different kinds of genres and different
Oh
kinds of
yeah.
books that like you can start wherever you are at with what you're reading and you can hop to like maybe a mystery, you can hop to like
Yep.
maybe a more traditional fantasy, you can hop over maybe even to like speculative and then while you're there you can maybe hop over to lit fic or you can go a lot of different places once you
Yeah.
start exploring what you like, and you don't have to like everything, like, maybe you're not gonna be the kind of person that loves Sally Rooney and, Stephen King or, like, whoever is, like, the big person right now,
Right.
but, like, maybe you're gonna like somebody else, like, some little whatever. Maybe you find out that you love Korean literature and you just strictly read Korean literature for, like, a few months,
Exactly.
like, but you would never know that if you don't venture out and you don't start trying to find new things, and if you
Yep.
constantly just read what the algorithms want you to read.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Mm,
That's it.
that's it.
That's what I got,
Now I kind
but
of
I'm
want to
very
start these
curious.
like next week.
I know. I'm very interested in starting these 2, um, but, I mean, I got a lot on my plate, but
I do too.
maybe, like, for 2025, there's gonna be more of this happening,
Yeah.
because 'cause I've always been very, very intrigued by this. I've seen these covers, and I'm like, "What is that?" Like, in the used bookstores, I've seen
Yeah.
the Cashel art and the Jacqueline Carey books, and I'm like, "What is this thing?" It
Yeah.
sounds smexy and, like, dark, and I just what is this? Um, but like this Anne Bishop thing, I am very curious. And I didn't realize that it's not just a trilogy. Like this is the bind up of the trilogy that I have. It's not just a trilogy. There's like 12 books. Okay. Like this is continuing on. Okay. There are deep worlds to go into. I don't
Well,
know
that's
if
the
they're
thing
still
too.
good.
Like a
Well,
lot of
but there's
these
these
writers are still writing. You know what I mean? I know with yeah, because Bishop is still writing, right?
Mhm.
Lackey's still writing. So
Yep.
very exciting.
Jacqueline
But
Carey's still writing.
every time I go in McKay and I'm in the fantasy section and there's like so much Mercedes Lackey. And like the last time I was in there when I bought these books, I just like hopped on the internet and I was like doing a little bit of research. I was like, okay, I got to grab at least the first two in this Beldamore series and see what it's about. Because she's got a crap ton of books in there. So
But I mean, but
I'm
this is not to say that if you don't just like if what you enjoy is reading big wingspan fairies having sex, have fun.
right.
But there's more to the world than that, and it doesn't need to flatten out the rest of fantasy to meet
Exactly.
that demand.
Exactly. Exactly.
Mhm.
But
Well,
there we are.
we're we're coming up on 3 o'clock. We're
We
coming
are.
up on the soccer game, so we
We
need
are. So let's
to
do these book
wrap up this
recommendations.
episode
All right.
before
Let us
this
know what you think
episode is
about
filled with Spanish expletives.
let us know what you think about the romantasy subgenre. Just give us all
Mhm.
your thoughts.
Give
All
us
right.
your thoughts.
Book recommendations. Whew, man,
You want me to go?
please do.
All right, so I pulled out a trilogy that I think goes in this order, but I might be wrong because I'm always wrong when I look at this trilogy. But this is actually a young adult. I would consider this a romantasy. There is a romance that is a big part of this story, but I think that it is more than that. I think it is fun, alternate timeline kind of story. I'm just trying to see if they tell me what order these go in because I always get it wrong. So it's a Darkness Strange and Lovely, and then
Mm,
I believe it's Something Strange and Deadly, and then Strange and Ever After. I could have these wrong. I get this wrong all the time. But these are by Susan Dennard, who wrote like The Wind Witch, I think it was called,
oh
and The
yeah.
Luminaries and some other stuff. And this is just it's just an it's a fun romp, right? And it's not like overly smexy, but if you wanted to have that, you know, little romance kick, it does still exist in there. And it's definitely teen. I think I don't remember where we start. Is this where we start? I really should have done a better job figuring that out, but you would think that they would make it clear like which one goes first.
We wish.
Um
We wish.
I don't know if this one maybe this one's first, Something Strange and Deadly. I can never remember. But anyway, we'll just read you this one because I can't tell. Okay.
Oh
Uh,
my.
I could just Google it. Hold on.
You want me to
I'm
go
sitting
first
here.
while you want me to go while you Googling things?
Hold on. I'm so close.
Oh my goodness.
And Deadly.
We're just
I know.
about there.
I know. This is what happens when you're okay, so yeah, this was right. So Something Strange and Deadly is the first one. See, like, just put numbers on the spines of books for the love of
That's
God.
so easy. So easy.
Okay, so it says after her father dies and her brother goes missing, Eleanor, whose last name I can't see because this is a used copy, is left to deal with her family's declining financial state while her controlling mother tries to marry her off. 16-year-old Eleanor doesn't think life can get more complicated, but then the dead start walking. Desperate to solve the mystery of her brother's disappearance, Eleanor ventures into the private lab of the elusive spirit hunters who protect the city from supernatural forces. Always a social misfit, Eleanor finally feels at home among the intellectual Joseph, feisty nostalgic and extremely stubborn yet handsome Daniel. But the more time she spends with them, the more dangerous her life becomes. Like you're in an alternate history Philadelphia in like the 1800s. It feels just like a fun romp. They kind of go all over the world. There's it's just a good time. It's just a
Hmm.
good time. And if you want that kind of like there is a romance, you know, and you're young and you want that, but it's not smut and it's never going to become smut. It's just going to stay YA romance with some fantasy. These are fun.
Nice. Okay.
That's what I that's what I wanted to say. I'm sorry it took me so long to get there.
That's fine.
But if they could just number the books, I wouldn't have to do that.
I know. I know. It's fine. We've talked about this before. Like, just put the number on the spine, please. Put it on the
I'm gonna put the
spine.
number on the spine.
That's it. Okay. I'm recommending a book that I read earlier this summer called "The Rich People Have Gone Away" by Regina Porter. This was gifted to me by Hogarth, and this was a fantastic book. It's kind of like a pandemic novel. We are in New York during the pandemic, and Theo Harper and his pregnant wife Daria have decided to leave town and go. Where do they go? I don't know. They went like to the countryside or whatever to stay at a cabin that her parents own, just kind of ride the pandemic out, just get out of the city or whatever. And so while they're there, they are, out and about in the woods, and they get into a terrible argument. And Darla slips and falls and like downhill. And Phil does not see her, cannot find her. And this happened like right after he told her like this long held family secret. And so he's all frantic. He's looking for her. He can't find her. And long story short, like he leaves and goes home. Okay. So now like everyone's in a panic because now his wife is missing. Of course, he's under investigation because the husband always did it, right? And meanwhile, Daria, that's her name. Did I say yeah, Darla? Darla is fine. She has met some strangers. They are taking care of her. And she's decided to like stay missing. She's trying to figure out things with herself and her marriage. And when she meets this couple who has taken her in to provide aid to her, she gives them her best friend's name. Darla's a white woman. Her best friend is a black woman, and she gives them this black woman's name, her best friend. And so things get all jumbled up. We've got a lot of different stories around us with people that live in the same apartment building as Theo and Darla. We've got her best friend whose name she's using. We've got things going on with her and her husband. And the story gets very messy, very messy. And it really just kind of also shows you like how quickly and how responsive people are when white women go missing, right? And how
Mhm.
quickly you get assistance, how quickly and how serious everything seems when you're trying to find a missing white woman. And all the while this is going on, the fact that Darla did not even take into account how this may affect her best friend by using her best friend's name, just completely oblivious, like it wouldn't affect that woman at all.
Mhm.
So there's a breakdown in that friendship when things come to a head. And it was just a really interesting and engaging read. This was my first time reading Regina Porter. I think her debut novel was called The Believers or something like that, which I'm going to read at some point. But I thought more people would have been talking about this over the summer. This came out in August,
Mhm.
so perhaps I can bring some more buzz to it. And that is The Rich People Have Gone Away by Regina Porter.
I mean, it sounds really interesting.
Yeah,
So, read it, people.
okay, listen, we got to wrap this thing up. Okay, 2:53. We're on a crunch here.
We're
All right,
we're on a crunch because there's going to be cursing.
there's going to be cursing. All right, listen, follow us everywhere at TBR Lowdown. Visit our website tbrlowdown.com. Tell a friend about the podcast. Leave us a review, and that's going to do it for us. We are
Mhm.
tired. We're out of here.
Mhm.
Bye.
Bye.